Dina, aka Miss WC Reader, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my December 2024 reading wrap up. I had this whole list of like Christmas hopefuls that I was going to read. I know some of you watched the video and were like, oh, some of these sound really interesting. I have decided that Christmas romance in book form isn't really my thing. Like, there are a couple of books I'm still interested in, but I just like had to DNF multiple of them in a row, and after that I'm like, I have Christmas burnout. I can't read anymore. The few that I had left, I decided to move over. I'm going to save those for a Christmas in July TBR in July. But yeah, like especially can't do the slow burn. I feel like Christmas romance in general should be and is kind of fast paced just because of the timeline. Like, you have a short window of time that the characters need to fall in love in. So when the book is moving excruciatingly slow, it just doesn't vibe for me. One of the books I attempted to read, like just the first chapter, and I don't know if it was because of the audiobook narrator, was just like making me cringe, and I had to put it down. And like, the books weren't clicking. So I decided to step that. I'm like, nope, we're not doing that. So I do have a bunch of books that I end up reading in the second half of December though, so I want to go through those with you guys today. This was the first one that I read in December. It is Church Girl by Naima Simone. So she has other books, like an extensive backlist, and I had read or like attempted to read some of her Rose Bend books. It's like this small town romance, kind of This Is Us vibes. That doesn't really work for me, but I do like spice in that series. But Church Girl really surprised me because I enjoyed it more than I did. It was a breath of fresh air among a lot of samey feeling romances that I had picked up lately. So this one follows Aaliyah, and she comes from the strict Christian family who has been grooming her to become a first lady in the church. They have her engaged to this man who is going to become a pastor, and it's her wedding day. She's about to go down the aisle, and she just realized she does not want this. So she runs away to her cousin. She tells her how she already made this plan where she got into this school in Chicago. She's going to move to Chicago and start a fresh life. She begs her cousin to go with her back to Chicago. So she goes back to Chicago, stays with her cousin, who is like this stripper and has her own nice apartment and stuff like that, and just doesn't tell her family where she's at. And she needs money now because she no longer has her family supporting her. So she applies for a nanny job. Well, she encounters Vaughn, who takes one look at her and he's like, you are not the nanny for me. Like, you can't cut it out here. And like, even though he is rude as hell to her at first and judges her very harshly, when he's in desperate need of a nanny, she does accept the job. And slowly she starts to come more into her own outside of the church and outside of her parents. Like, cause don't get it twisted, she got a little bit of attitude to her. You know, she got a little bit of fire. Her bad side can come out when needed. And I just liked how they came together as a couple. Like, Vaughn is one of those straight, no chaser type of dudes. He says whatever is on his mind. He's not going to say it in like the sugar-coated sweet way. He's going to give it to you. And I love that. He's hood, and I like that as well. He never tries to conform or change for her. And like I said, she really does get to bring out her strong side and go toe-to-toe with him. And learn to stand up for herself, because she realizes like she can stand up for herself in all these different areas except with her parents. I will say, trigger warning for childhood sexual abuse, because that does come up in the book very briefly, where like she is recounting an incident from her childhood. But other than that, this was a very fun romp. I actually got a friend to read it who enjoyed it as well, so if you were curious about this one, I would recommend checking it out. Society of Lies by Lauren Ling Brown. This is a dark academia that was the selection for Reese's book club. It was getting a lot of attention, so I had put a hold in with the library and I waited for it to come through, and I ended up listening to the audiobook. It has two POVs, so you're following the POV of an older sister character and a younger sister. Both are Black and Asian American. They both went to Princeton and they both end up joining this secret society. And the younger sister ends up getting killed right before her graduation, so the older sister is trying to piece together things and find out how she died, because the police are just ready to rule it as a suicide, and she's like, no, there's some foul play here, especially knowing that her sister was trying to get into this secret society even though she warned her not to. And it started off very slow. I will say it didn't get an interesting till about part 2 for me. There were 4 parts altogether in this book. I don't think it needed to be dual POV. So, like, the younger sister, her voice just felt too much like the older sister, especially because some of the POV chapters of the older sister were from her time at Princeton. So we're getting, like, some from her adulthood, present day, and then some from her time at Princeton, and then her sister's time at Princeton. And even though they're years apart, it was like blending together. I feel like in the younger sister's POVs, the author tried to incorporate things that happened in the past few years as far as current events. So it felt a little heavy-handed, like the COVID talk, all the Stop Asian Hate talk, all the Black Lives Matter talk, and it felt like less of just like the college experience per se. Whereas with the younger sister, I think she tried to with the older sister, she tried to incorporate more of her own real life college experience, and it felt a little bit more balanced. I didn't really understand why either of them wanted to be in this secret society, though. Like, I understand there was a factor of this society has great connections. We're trying to have a better life. But at the same time, they're at Princeton, so you are already getting connections and having a better life. As far as thrillers, I don't think this one did anything particularly special. It was, for the most part, very straightforward, not a lot of twists and turns. I feel like certain things were shown to us when they could have been easily recapped in like a quick flashback or just told to us. Like, we didn't need to see this one going to this party where she got rejected and champagne was poured all over her, like, and that's why she didn't like the one dude. Like, we could have just had a quick, like, 2-sentence recap of that, because, like, we just didn't need to see it. And I found, like, a lot of stuff did focus on with this society and them, like, partying and drinking and doing drugs, and I didn't understand, again, why they wanted to be a part of that so bad. And I know there are groups at these types of schools specifically for, like, Black and Asian students. I didn't know why they wanted to go into the white secret society. But anyway, like I said, it was a pretty straightforward thriller. I wouldn't say it's a whole lot memorable. The author did kind of annoy me with some of her phrasing. Specifically, she kept using the phrase over and over again, like, I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I was holding, which felt very juvenile. When I see that phrase in a book, I just cringe because it's such a cliche. And to see it multiple times in the book was just, ugh. That was one of my icks. This could have been better though. I don't really see why it would need like an adaptation, which we know Reese specializes in, and that's why she picks these books. It was just an okay, like, dark academia. I feel like it went pretty standard like a lot of the other ones. The Dating Countdown by Angie Peltier. So this was one that I had been putting off for a couple months. Like, I was reading it like piece. And then I decided in December I'm going to completely finish reading it. I did not love this one as much as her other books. Like, it started off pretty good. We're following Remy and Maxine, which, if you read the other books, they were kind of in the background, like secretly hooking up in both of those. So this was like time for their story. I've been kind of struggling to find good black sapphic romance lately. I've been picking up books and they just haven't been giving me what I need. This brought it as far as like the steamy scenes, which some of the other ones I read / attempted to read lacked. But I didn't buy their romance as much. It felt like Remy was putting in all the work and Maxine was a little flighty and indecisive and worried about image and this and that. Like I said, it just was not a vibe for me as much as the other two, specifically Don't Go Baking My Heart. That one has been my favorite of this series so far. There was a little setup in here. I think the next book will be Scott, just because he's been mentioned a couple of times and he's like everybody's like gorgeous friend that they're always talking about. And there was like some little sprinkles here about what's going down with him, and I would be interested in watching that and reading that. But as far as Remy and Maxine, they were okay, but I really just didn't connect too much to their story. I read 2 books in the Spiderwick Chronicles, which was one of my goals to reread this series because it had been so long. So I read book 1, which is The Field Guide, and book 2, which is The Seeing Stone, and it was all coming back to me as I listened to it. I love that these are so short because it gives you just enough to get you hooked, and then it's like cliffhanger and you have to go immediately read the next one, which is what happened to me when I was reading The Field Guide. Like, it ended and I'm just like, oh my gosh, now I have to immediately go into book 2. And I immediately like went into book 2, had a good time with it, and then I'm like, okay, I need to go into book 3, but I didn't have the audiobook for book 3. I have book 3 though. I have a physical copy from when I was a kid because that was the only book in the series that I had. So I do have book 3 and I do want to finish off the series this year. But I love it because it's just so fast paced. I like the world that was built here. I was like remembering stuff like the movie while I was listening. I think they did a really great job just giving you just enough information about these kids and giving you just enough to get interested without like too many erroneous details. So we're following 3 kids who just moved into this new house that used to belong to like an aunt or whatever, and they're adjusting to this new place and this new school, and they find out there are these magical creatures surrounding their house that they can't really see. Like, there are goblins and other monsters, so they start finding themselves have to battle against them. So I had a good time with those 2 books, no complaints. I read Millie Magnus Won't Be Bullied. This one is by Brittany Mazik. This is the first in a new chapter book series, and I was very curious about it. I have read Brittany Mazik before. Like, she's done like some picture book stuff. So that's why I wanted to pick this up. We don't see a ton of chapter books with black characters written by black authors. A lot of the ones that I come across lately are written by white authors. So I wanted to read it. Millie Magnus, the closest character I could compare her to as far as somebody who's more familiar would be like Junie B. Jones. Maybe she has that kind of like attitude to her a little bit. Like, she keeps calling her mom by like not her first name, but like mayor, and her mom has to keep correcting her, and she's like, no, it's mom. Her mom is the mayor of DC. She goes to this fancy private school, and she's dealing with a bully at the school. Like, this boy is constantly picking on her, and she wants to show him up in the three-legged race at on field day at school. This was an okay start to the series. I want to pass it along to the girls and get their opinion. I don't know if this is going to fully engage them, though. I do feel like the morality lessons were just a little heavy-handed, which I know it can go either way, and it can be subtle, or it can be like beating you over the head with it. And I feel like here it just like felt like it was beating over the head a little bit. Like, it felt like a little drawn out here. Not as fast paced, even though it's a pretty short book. But I would be curious to see if things get better as the series progresses and the author becomes more comfortable with the characters. This is When the Mapu Sings. This one is by Nadine Hanade. And this is a novel in verse. Specifically, it's a YA novel in verse. I'm not sure why this was YA. I'm gonna do that because I can't foresee any teens picking this up unless it's for like a class assignment. It's a decent book, but I feel like some of the emotional stakes could have been a little higher. Like, the stuff that I was interested in, like Lucille discovering herself and like her first crush and love and stuff, sometimes took a back seat to the author wanting to give us all this history, because this is set in 1930s Haiti. Lucille ends up getting sent off to go work for some rich woman after she angers the section leader in her area. This is set after the US occupation of Haiti. So you kind of do need just a little bit of background on that. That's why I say, like, this would probably be better in school, like if you were learning a lesson, and you could kind of use this book as part of your teaching to talk about that period in history. Like, I really just don't see teens being too fascinated in this, but adults definitely, especially if they're doing research, would probably enjoy this more. Lucille ends up encountering this author. I don't remember if they ever clearly said her name, but it's Zora Neale Hurston. She's doing research for her book, Their Eyes Are Watching God. So she starts working for this lady and helping her along with her research, while also still trying to track down one of her childhood friends and missing this first love of hers. So it wasn't like a bad book. I had a pretty good listen to it, but like I said, if you're reading it alongside some like additional research, it would probably be better, but it's not something I could really see too many people picking up just to pick up. Love in Bloom by Lucy Eden. I was very curious to read this one because I have never read a Lucy Eden before this one. I saw her all the time because you've probably seen her illustrations around. She's like a decently popular indie author. This is her first trad published book, I believe. So basically this woman inherits a farm from her grandparents. It's in small town Georgia, and after her life completely blows up and she loses her job at this fancy PR firm, she's just like, I'm gonna start over on the farm. This could be my new beginning. And she starts trying to like work real hard and learn farm life, and everybody in this town is just kind of weird, and she doesn't really understand how this farm is functioning and operating, and there's like lots of secrets and stuff. I will say I went in knowing the secret only because somebody spoiled it for me on Goodreads. Like, I wasn't even looking for reviews. It's that somebody I'm mutuals with reviewed it, and it came across my timeline. You know, like on the on your landing page when you log into Goodreads, and they didn't have a spoiler tag on their review. I happened to see their review while I was scrolling, and they spoiled the twist. Like, you can kind of start to piece together the twist, like based off of the little clues, but they spoiled it, and I feel like if the book is doing such a good job trying to conceal it, don't put that out there in your review like that. Like, that was just rude, because it was literally right before I was about to pick the book up. So I kind of went in just like waiting for the shoe to land as far as that secret. And like, it's kind of a nonsensical twist too. Like it doesn't really make any much sense how she pieced it together. It gives the book like an extra campy quality though. Um, this is a romance, but I will say I didn't fully buy the romance. They had okay chemistry. I found that the man, he kind of felt too fast, too quick, and the moment she did something which wasn't necessarily a horrible thing, it was just like a misunderstanding, he immediately like is just like, I'm done with you, blah 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 blah, and is ready after he was like a couple days before declaring his love for her, like she was the best thing that ever happened to him. So I didn't love the third act breakup. This really didn't need a third act breakup because there was additional side drama that was happening at the same time. Like, she's planning this fall fest, and in addition to her planning this fall fest, she has this ex-boyfriend who is trying to be governor, and he's trying to basically push them back into a relationship, and he's threatening her to expose the town's secrets. So I'm like, when you have external drama in the third act that can carry a little bit of weight, you don't need that third act breakup. So this was an okay read, like I said, but it wasn't my favorite romance. I do have another like farm country themed romance that I'm hoping will be better than this one. I listened to the audiobook for Barbacoa, Bomba, and Betrayal. This one is by Raquel Reyes, and it's a cozy mystery, one of like umpteenth in this series. I think it's book 3. This one got a lot of critique, which I found interesting, just like reading the critique on Goodreads, because there are a lot of white people who are really entitled, and they keep critiquing this series for the heavy usage of Spanish. The character is a Latina. I don't know what you expect. She's going to switch between the languages. I don't feel like any of the Spanish in this book, when it wasn't translated, wasn't something you couldn't figure out what they said via the context clues. In this one, our main character, Miriam, she is in Puerto Rico working on her show, and her parents are in the Dominican Republic trying to set up their new like hotel. They have like a hotel bed and breakfast type of situation going on. We do get a lot of talk while she's in Puerto Rico about the government and the power grid. I feel like with the way things are in Puerto Rico, that's unavoidable. Like, I know a lot of people were upset by that, especially I guess like they wanted to escape. It's so nice to be able to just go to Puerto Rico and escape and not have to think about those things. I know that's something I would be thinking about though when I was there, because I have friends who are Puerto Rican, both on the island and off the island, and this is something we've had discussions about many times, because for periods of time, including just recently, the power will go out and they have no idea when it's going to come back on. That's insane for a US territory. And it's getting crazy expensive to live there. A lot of locals are being priced out in favor of tourists. Like, it is a mess down there. So that comes up in the story, specifically because Miriam has family who lives on the island, and one of her family members is an activist. Now, one thing that was heavy here too that I really dislike about the series in general, I understand that the author wants to educate people as far as the food and culture, but like, Miriam be over explaining the food in her head. It makes sense when she's explaining the food in the context of sequences for her televised show, but she just like heavy-handed over explains stuff about the food while she's eating it. We don't need those heavy-ended explanations, and I wish the author would just like cut that part completely, like stop explaining. Like she'll pick up just like a simple average dish and start explaining to you the history behind it and the breakdown, and this is why these people eat it, and this is where like it's too much, and that got distracting. There was a lot going on with Miriam's friends in this particular one too, which I feel like kind of took over the mystery and overshadowed it, and I actually don't really remember completely what the mystery was in here because so much of that just took over. It was just like it started out with her getting this cryptic message, and then her friend was dating this guy who was a businessman in Miami who was like throwing all this money on her, and he seemed kind of shady. Then she had this other friend who's like, I think my boyfriend is cheating on me. I'm just waiting for him to come back because he's cheating. And then like you have the whole situation with her parents in the Dominican Republic, and they're getting sabotaged as they're trying to set up their little hotel. So there was just way too much going on. To end the year, I decided to read Island Christmas. This one is by Callie Browning. This was just like a short like novella set during World War II era in Barbados. I actually found it really fascinating. It was just a cute, sweet, quick romance read. That was the prequel for a new book that she has coming up, so you get a preview of the new book here. It wasn't super Christmassy. I mean, Christmas was only in the last chapter, but it was interesting just to see like this little romance that was historical back in the day. So I didn't have any issues with that. I ended up giving it, I think, 4 stars. So that was everything that I read during the month of December. Have you read any of these? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!